Well, a very warm welcome to you if you've just tuned in. Just gone 25 to 7 this Wednesday morning. It's one of the big stories we're tracking for you. The Defend Our Democracy campaign has welcomed the Constitutional Court judgment, which found former President Jacob Zuma guilty of contempt of court. The Apex Court also sentencing Zuma to an effective 15 months in jail for failing to comply with its order to honour a summons to appear at the state capture inquiry. The former president now has 4 days to hand himself over to a police station for transfer to a correctional facility. This ruling marking the first time a former head of state is jailed in South Africa, underscoring the independence of the country's judiciary. While handing down judgment, Justice Sisi Kampepe described Zuma's comments against the judiciary as outlandish and intolerable, saying it could not go unpunished. Let's speak to ANC Stalwart and Defend Our Democracy campaigner Cheryl Carolus now. Cheryl, it's great to have you with us on the show. Welcome. We've all had about 18 hours or so to digest that judgment from the Constitutional Court. You know, what's your reaction now?
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to all the viewers. It has indeed been a great day for democracy in South Africa, but I think also for the world, because we've had a whole year and a half where citizens have just been battered by bad leaders making bad decisions and in fact being quite arrogant. And this has been a great day for South Africa particularly because it's also been a great celebration of our judiciary and a demonstration of the competence and thoughtfulness of our justices of the Constitutional Court. And it's been a comforting reassurance that our Constitution is alive and that it is in good hands, such as what we've seen with the justices of the Constitutional Court tomorrow. Yeah. But, Michelle, it's also a sad day that we witnessed a spectacular fall from a leader who had enjoyed the trust of ordinary ANC members and indeed the population of South Africa. A man who had been elected and whom we entrusted to lead us and to protect us and who had sworn allegiance to a constitution. That is one of the most beautiful documents, and so it is indeed sad. And that was a man who had asserted that he wanted his day in court, and he spent years disrespecting the very courts that he said he would. He spent millions of taxpayers' money, and I think that what yesterday for us was truly heartening was the fact that it reasserted the very important principle in any democracy, and that is of equality before the law, and that is triumph. And it's demonstrated that none of us are above the law. And so I want to just ask the former president and his supporters to desist from their former behavior. They have an opportunity to conduct themselves with decorum and to, in fact, respect the rule of law. I also want to say that I also want to make an appeal and a statement to those who still have an opportunity to go and have their day in court at the Zondo Commission or anywhere else where there are investigations into the terrible corruption and wrongdoing that has happened. I want to ask that those who still have an opportunity and whose turns are still coming up to please go to the Zondo Commission and to help our nation to heal. They have an opportunity. They can see what the consequences are now if they do not use that opportunity. And indeed, there are the consequences of charges if you lie or you refuse to go. So a great day and a sad day, but a wonderful day for constitutionalism and the restoration of our faith as South Africans that we are safe under our Constitution.
And Cheryl, you know, the fact that it took some months for the Constitutional Court to deliver its judgment, it goes some way in perhaps showing to South Africans that it wasn't an easy decision for the court to arrive at. You know, analysts will say there was no other decision for the court to make yesterday, but it did take some months. It was also a split decision, even though the justices were together on the fact that the former president is guilty of contempt of court. They were split on what was the appropriate sanction. What you're saying now, also just making me think of some of the reaction I saw on social media yesterday after that judgment was handed down. Someone in the media field, in fact, saying, you know, I felt like South Africans mattered today for the first time.
Yes. No, it is indeed that because, you know, Michelle, we've just had years of brutalization with this kind of bluster going on, insults being hurled at other South Africans. We've never spoken like this. Leaders in our country have never spoken to citizens like that. And I do think this is why it was such a wonderful triumph of what is good about this country, of what many people have given their lives for. And it was just marvelous that the Constitutional Court judges took their time, were not going to be rushed, bullied or intimidated, or seek fear or favor, and that they just were so thoughtful. That judgment, I heard somebody saying earlier on the show that it was almost poetic. And that's who we are as a nation. We are resolute, we are clear, we are uncomplicated, and we care. So it was really a triumphant day. But as I said, Michelle, we mustn't underestimate the impact this has had on the world, because we've had a year of just the most arrogant leaders at a time when our people are under such pressure from the coronavirus. And so I think that other leaders in the world and other citizens must in fact take heart from the fact that we can take this on. The Defend Democracy campaign, after years where the former president and his supporters have thrived on trying to divide us, to create conflict and chaos in our country. And the Defend Democracy has been a place where, as South Africans, we have come together in a way that we haven't for a long time, where we set our petty differences aside and we realize there are much bigger things at stake here.
Yeah.
There's the rule of law, there's constitutionalism, and there is in fact just pure and simple care and respect that needs to be reasserted in our country.
Well,
and that's why I feel so proud of having been one of the initiators of the Defend Our Democracy campaign.
Well, let's talk about that arrogant leadership that you just mentioned, Cheryl. And you know, today the other big story in our headlines is around the SIU releasing its final report into the health minister's possible involvement in awarding a dodgy tender to this company called Digital Vibes, run by his close associates. In terms of corruption in our country to date, the AG telling us just some weeks ago that the biggest amounts of money in terms of corruption that we've seen in the country have actually unfolded over the past year in the midst of a pandemic, the money that could have been used to save South Africans' lives. What does this Constitutional Court justice do in terms of perhaps applying pressure to the governing party in how it says it wants to deal with corruption, but how its actions differ so greatly?
Michelle, I do think that this assertion yesterday was that no matter who you are, no fear or favor. It also asserted that no matter who you are entitled to due process. And so as far as the Minister of Health goes, you know, we'll have to see. There is due process, and of course we'll have to see where the SIU report goes today.
Yeah.
But I think he himself has done the right thing. He stepped aside, and let's see. But I do think it's a real triumph for accountability, and knowing that you cannot and you should not get away with wrongdoing, regardless of who you are, but perhaps especially if you are somebody who has enjoyed the trust of the public.
Absolutely. Cheryl Carolus, great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming onto the AM report. She is Defend Our Democracy campaigner, of course also ANC Stalwart, joining us as we continue to get reaction to that decision by the Constitutional Court just yesterday. Former President Jacob Zuma found guilty of contempt of court for his refusal to appear before the state capture inquiry, effectively sentenced to 15 months behind bars.